So in this lecture, let's actually go ahead and add up a form over here so that the user can submit his own request for a specific URL. So adding form over here is quite simple. You just need to go into this template and add up a form over here. So even before we start creating a form up here, let's go ahead and actually create a proper bootstrap container, have the row and column inside it, and place this table inside that container. So I'll say div class equals container, and in that container let's actually have the row and column. So div class equals row, and then in there let's have the column in here. So div class equals, let's say, call dash md dash, let's say 8. This should be md, and now inside this let's actually place our entire table which we have right here. So let's cut that from here and place it inside over here. So now once we have this table, if you actually go back and hit refresh, as you can see, our table is placed in a much more better way. So now if I go ahead and want to create a form, I'll go inside this container, and in here I'll create another div that is another row. So I'll type in div class equals row, and then I can create a column inside here. So div class equals call dash md dash, let's say 4. So now in here let's actually go ahead, create a form which has an input field which accepts the link from the user. So I can simply say something like form, and the method for this form is going to be equal to post, and the action is going to be just a slash because we want to visit the home page back when the form is submitted. And now let's go ahead and add a CSRF token in here. So I'll type in CSRF underscore token, and now let's actually start creating the input class. So I'll type in input class equals, this is going to be form control. So this is nothing but the bootstrap form class, and the type of this is going to be text, and the ID of this is going to be site, and let's say the placeholder is going to be something like enter site address, and the name of this thing is also going to be equal to site. So I'll say name equals site as well. So now let me just go ahead, close this particular tag, and after that let's go ahead and close this specific div right here. So this div which we have created should actually end up over here itself. So now once we end this div, let's go ahead and create another column over here. So I'll say div class equals call dash md dash 1, and in here we are actually going to have the submit button. So we are still inside the form, but we are just separating out the div tags so as to format this in a better way. So let's create a button in here. So the button class is going to be btn dash primary, and the type of this button is going to be submit because this is going to submit our form. And then let's name this button as scrape because it's going to scrape for the links in a particular web page. So now once this form ends, we'll go right here and create another column over here. So I'll say div class equals call dash md dash, and I'll say 7, and in here I'll again create another button which is the button to actually delete all the links which are present in our database. So I'll say a class equals btn dash warning, and the href for this is going to be, let's say, slash delete. So we have not yet created the URL patterns for this, but we are going to create that very soon. So let's name this thing as delete. And now once we have this specific form, let's go ahead and see if we have that form up over here. So if I hit refresh, as you can see, we do have that form over here. And as you can see, there's not much margin over here, and in order to add up the margin to this form, I can simply go ahead and make use of the bootstrap class. So I'll say m-5 to add a margin of 5 on either side. I'll use this for this row, and now if I go ahead, hit refresh, as you can see, we still have some formatting issues over there. So let's actually go ahead and make this 2, and let's try to make this 6 and see if this thing works out. So now as you can see, it looks much more better. So now once we are done with that, let's actually go ahead and make this form functional by modifying the view which we have. So currently the view is only designed so as to go ahead and scrape these links right here, but now instead of actually having to hard code this link over here, we now actually want to get the link from the form. So in order to get anything from the form when the form is submitted, we first need to make sure and check if the request method is post. So that means that whenever the form is submitted, we actually want to get the link which is submitted to this particular input field. So in here I need to type in if request.method is equal to post, which means I now need to go ahead and actually get the site, and the site is nothing but the parameter which the user has entered. So I'll type in site equals request.post.get, and the name of the input field is nothing but site, so I'll type in site in here, and the default for this is going to be empty. So now once we have this site, we now need to make sure to go ahead and pass this site over here to this page. So now you also need to go ahead and actually indent this code over here. So make sure that you go ahead and indent this over here. So I'll indent each and every line of code like that. And in here now, to this particular page, instead of passing this, I can now simply pass in site. So this thing actually remains the same. We will still be using the HTML parser. We'll still actually go ahead, loop through these elements and save them over here. But the one thing which changes over here is that once we have actually scraped the entire thing, we actually now want to go ahead and return back to the web page, which is the current home page. So in order to do that, I can type in return, and we will use HTTP response redirect, because obviously when the form is submitted, we want to redirect the user back to the home page. So I need to first go ahead and import HTTP response redirect. So I'll type in from django.http import HTTP response redirect. So now once I have imported that, I can just go ahead and make use of that over here as HTTP response redirect, and we actually want to redirect them to the home page. So we have written this if block over here, and now we also want to write the else block as well. So I need to type in else, and if the request method is not equal to post, that means if we are just requesting for the home page and we have not submitted any data, in that case we actually want to go ahead and execute this code over here, which gets all the objects from our database and displays them on our home page. So we'll have this particular code inside our else block. So that's all fine and good. We now have this view designed completely. So now let's go ahead and see if this thing works. So if I go ahead, save the code, and if we go back over here, and now let's go ahead and first of all hit refresh, and now let's type in https://www.wikipedia.org, and now if I click on scrape, as you can see, we will get the Wikipedia page scraped, but it will be present at the end over here. So as you can see, now we have links to Wikipedia over here and the different names of all those links. So now we also need to make sure that we make this delete button functional. So now in order to make this delete button functional, first of all, let's go ahead and write a view for the delete method. So in here I need to type in def, and let's name this view as clear, and it's going to accept a request. And the job of this view is simple. It just needs to go ahead and delete all the link objects. So I can simply type in link.objects.all, and I can use the delete method to delete all of those objects. It's as simple as that. And then I need to simply return a response. So I'll simply go ahead and render the template, which is nothing but our existing HTML template. So I can say my app/result.html, and that's it. You don't need to pass in any context over here. and also this should be actually request. So now once we have that, the only thing which remains is that we need to now go ahead and actually create a URL patterns for this. So if you go to urls.py file in here, and if you type in path and just type in the path which is /delete, so you need to type in delete / over here, and you need to also mention the view, so views.clear, and the name of this view also is going to be, let's say, clear. So now once we go ahead and let's hit refresh, and when I click on this delete button, as you can see, all the contents inside our scraper actually get deleted. So now let's say I want to scrape any site, so I'll type in https://google.com. so when I click on scrape, as you can see, it actually scraped all the links which we have, and when I want to delete, I can simply click on this delete button and it will delete all the links which are present over here. And one last thing which I want to do here is that I just want to go ahead and give our site a header. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So let's go ahead and in here, let's create a row. So div class equals row, and in here let's create a column. So div class equals, let's say, call -md -12, and let's say this is going to also have a margin of 5. And in here let's simply go ahead and create a header by using the h1 tag, and let's say this thing says link, let's just name it link collector. And now if you go ahead and hit refresh, as you can see, you now have the link collector over here, which looks pretty simple, but it performs the way which we want. So that's it for this section, and I hope you guys enjoyed creating this link scraper or link collector. So you can actually go ahead and modify the look and feel or the functionality of link scraper as you want. So you can either tweak the design of this link scraper, or if you want, you can actually go ahead and make changes to the functionality of this link scraper in the views.py file right here. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.